Welcome everybody. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how you can always beat Aurora in mid lane. Aurora is very hard to beat on mid lane due to the fact that she's a really strong early game laner due to her strong trading. So the key to countering Aurora is understanding what she's trying to do in the lane and then denying her from doing so. So the plan that Aurora has whenever she comes up in the early lane is she wants to try to get control of the lane by taking good quality trades. Just think about her kit for a second, okay? Her kit is extremely overloaded in damage and trading power. Let's start with her passive. 3-hit passive, really easy for her to proc with her Q, and it grants her HP regeneration the moment she gets a passive proc onto a champion. Her Q, 2 parts to the spell, of course, which makes it very easy to proc Electrocute and the passive. And the moment it actually lands, it just deals an immense amount of damage. Her E, very long range, extremely fast skill shot, very hard to miss, that procs Sudden Impact and Scorch. So the amount of trading power in that is also insane. And of course, her W, which good Aurora players will use in a very high value way, that they use it to dodge a spell and then get close to you and have an easy time landing her skill shot. So Aurora, the moment she lands her spells consistently, will eat you alive. So the trick to playing versus Aurora is how do we actually prevent her from landing her skill shots? Because her damage is so overloaded in these skill shots that if she lands it, she's just going to stat check us. And that's just the reality of this champion. So a big part of what we're doing in this game is trying to prevent her from landing her skill shots by faking up our movement, faking CS, and of course, contesting the space in the lane in a smart way so that it's hard for her to get close to us. General rules, okay, of if you're playing versus Aurora, this is what Aurora is going to try to do. She's going to try to time her spells with your last hits or with your out attacks, because that's when you're standing still. And that's when she can actually throw her spell and land it onto you. That's one of the key things that she's trying to do. Or she's trying to extend the trade where she walks closer towards you. And then at a time when you're actually standing still, that's the time when she's going to be using her Q, land the skill shot, and then you're going to be cooked, right? Because whenever you're in an out-attack battle, there's going to be times where you're going to need to out-attack her, and that's when you're going to be standing still, and that's when she actually throws her spell. So those are the awkward moments where you are going to get landed by a skill shot. And you got to keep in mind, as a general rule of playing into Aurora, the moment she lands her spells and you land your spells, she generally always wins. Because her spells are conditional, right? Most of Aurora's spells are conditional. And that means that Riot needs to put a little bit more of extra power into those spells because they're missable. If you're, for example, take a look at Victor Q or Victor E, which are almost unmissable spells, if you throw those and you land your full combo into Aurora and Aurora lands her full combo into you, she wins because she actually landed the skill shot while you didn't, right? So that's like the thought process in there. That's why Aurora's power is so heavily structured in burst in the early game. So the key thing that I'm trying to do versus Aurora is I'm trying to make sure that my minions die at the same time, so at similar times. So I sync up minions dying so that it's hard for her to find trading opportunities onto me. I stand away from low health minions, generally slightly outside of the wave. And by doing so, I'm in a position where I make it hard for Aurora to actually land spells onto me. So a general thing that I would do here in this case is I'm standing always opposite side to Aurora, because if you stand same side, it's actually really easy for her to get close to you because you see that this is closer than this, right? So I'm standing opposite side of the wave, but I'm also making sure that I'm never in line with low health minions so that she can look for high value Qs. Another reason why we need to stand outside of the wave is because if she can plant her Q onto this, she can even miss it, and then by a recast, she can drag it through us, so she doesn't even need to land the first part of the skill shot. So standing in the wave is a deadly sin versus Aurora. You always want to stand outside of it. And because you want to kind of get some distance between you and her, because she's a mid-range champ, if she can land her spell, right, you lose. So standing on the same side means that she is closer to you. So you want to try to kind of stand on the opposite side, and that's going to make it way harder for her to land her spells consistently. So that's how I try to dance around her Q. And I always look at Aurora's portrait, right? This is where I'm actively looking. And the moment I see her throw her spell or I see her like click into me, I'm always clicking directly to the side of where I'm standing right now. So I'm clicking directly 90-degree angle here. Pythagoras doesn't even know what's going on. That's how straight we're clicking in the angles to dodge out on her Q. You can even like go to the next level where you bait out her Q by knowing her range, acting as if you're going to like attack her or attack a minion, and then clicking to the side instead, because the moment her Q is down, 7 seconds cooldown, it's very easy for us to now pressure and push her away in the lane And that way she needs to run into you on her next set of cooldowns. And that's very hard for her to then land her spells. Because if she's running into you, it's very obvious when she's going to throw her spell. The time where you're going to really get blasted by Aurora is if you're forced to run into her while you're still forced to last at minions. That's when shit's going to go bad. Okay, let's talk about her E. Okay, her E spell is extremely annoying because it is so long range and it's so fast that it's really hard to dodge. And it's really up to Aurora to miss. So keep in mind that Aurora needs to win the trades in the lane to get control of the lane. So the way that she's going to do that is either by stepping up landing Q, or she's going to look to poke you down with these E's. If you play, for example, LeBlanc into Aurora, Aurora sometimes has a rough time landing her Q because it's too close range to get into LeBlanc, and she's just going to be chipping you away with these E's, and then suddenly you're half HP after 3 or 4 E's because of proc sudden impact and Scorch, and that's when she can then actually get closer towards you and annihilate you. But once again, Aurora's a skill shot heavy champ, right? If we dodge her skill shots, we win. If we don't dodge her skill shots, like in this case, we get completely blasted in the trades. And that's how we basically lose the lane. A few other things to mention about Aurora, okay? Aurora really struggles from behind because she's a threshold champ and she has pretty decently long cooldown. She doesn't really buy a lot of haste. So the moment she can't really kill you, it's actually very hard for her to play. She's a very snowball heavy champion because of that as well. If she's ahead, she's going to annihilate you and it's going to feel like you are getting absolutely choked out and you can't play the game. And post 6, what you find that a lot of Aurora players do is that they're going to use their R for lane control. Aurora's ult is an ability that actually slows. And because of that reason, it makes it very easy for her to then all in you, get a lot of passive procs off with her auto attacks, and then also hit a Q onto you because you're slowed. So it's incredibly hard to then dodge her spell. So be very careful post level 6 Aurora because she might run into the position where she's gonna just all in you just on the long lane. Like if you push one wave too far or you're like 70% HP, you might just die if you're not careful. And like I said, you want to be very careful giving Aurora early leads because she will take over the game with it. Your lane's going to feel absolutely miserable the moment you're going to be from behind. Especially because that's the time when she can also use very creative W angles from the Fog of War. When she has got lane control, she can block out your vision. She can come from really annoying angles and actually get massive trades onto you. A general thing that a lot of Aurora players do, especially in the higher ranks, is that they're not going to sync up their Q and their E at the same time. Because if you dodge one, you dodge the other as well. And that's when she's cooked because she's got no firepower left, right? Her E is always a spell that you can use to then trade onto you and then escape afterwards because you can't really ever get close to her because you get slowed and she dashes away. So a lot of higher level Aurora players are going to desync their Q and their E and almost rarely not in the lane go for like QE, but lower elo Auroras will go for QE. And then it's just if you dodge a spell, you just win the lane, right? That's just the mindset. That's the key thing to keep in mind. Now, few other things to keep in mind if you want to beat Aurora. In the mid game and in team fights, okay? The way that Aurora fights is actually all around her QE combo. So then she is actually going to sync up her QE and she's going to play a little bit like a sniper, like a nuke. So she tries to like one-shot key targets by getting into the position where she like slows them with the R and then uses that slow or like CC from her team, like multi-threat, to then be in a position where she can actually hit you with her full spells, and that's how she nukes her. Her ult is actually not her main threatening spell in the team fight. She uses her ult to set up for her Q. Her Q is where the nuke's at, because the second part of her Q deals damage based upon missing HP. So she nukes you with the first part of the Q and the E, and then the second part of the Q procs electrocute, and that's when you're going to get absolutely blasted. So you want to be quite careful, of course, for your key targets and on the flanks. But do keep in mind that if you're facing up against Aurora and she's trying to all-in you, make sure you dodge the Q. That's when you're going to be fine, and that's when you're not going to die. You want to be a little bit careful of side laning versus Aurora. Aurora's a pretty strong side laner. She's very mobile, and she has an easy time setting up ganks with her jungle because of the slow and because of her mobility. So you want to be a little bit careful for that. It's also quite hard to actually pressure onto her because of her mobility. But do keep in mind that she's a stat check heavy champion. She's a threshold champ. The moment she's behind, she's been in a position where it's hard for her to play the game. And it's all about making sure that you don't give her that initial lead. And the moment she's weak, it's going to be hard for her to actually play the game and have an impact. So it's all about making sure that you don't get the snowball going by dodging out on her spells in the early game. And then you can actually attack her onto the wave very often. And you're going to be in a position where it's harder for Aurora to play the game. Do be careful with skirmishes. She's a strong skirmisher. But if you can get info on her, you have vision on her, and she's not going from flanks or annoying angles, generally speaking, it's quite easy to dodge her spells. Playing Aurora is really hard. This champion is very, very hard. If you ever fall behind versus Aurora, don't feel desperation. you'll see 9 out of 10 times the enemy Aurora is going to outplay themselves and they're just going to throw the game. That's just the fact. This champ is hard. Final thing I want to mention, if you're playing a melee champion, like a D-shield champion into Aurora, this is actually very hard to play because Aurora is a burst heavy champion. If you win second win D-shield, what happens is that you don't really get value from the items because she just giga bursts you, and the value of the regeneration, which then generally you like to have it spread out, isn't really there because it's just one quick burst. So you get one bit of regen, but it's not really worth it because of the immense burst that she has. If you play versus her, dodge her Q. Okay, if you're playing a D-shield second win champ, drop caster creeps, right? Dodge your Q and make sure that you don't lose too much of your HP. And just drop a creep or two, invest one of the caster creeps. Don't go for every creep because she's going to try to time her Qs with her last hits. Use the opportunity to fake a CS where you like act as if you walked up and then you actually just give the creep, you fake the CS, and then you dodge out her Q and then you go for the next minions when her Q is down. So if you play this D-shield second win champ, it's okay to go down like 10, 15 CS. That's just the reality in Aurora. She's a really strong early game laner. That's it, guys. Those are like the key tricks to play into Aurora. If you have any other questions, let me know down below in the comments. And if you really struggle into Aurora, I can guarantee that you struggle into Ahri as well. So for that matchup, check it out right here.